In the past year, 1,523 manga authors created new series that each released a chapter for the very first time. And out of all of these authors, they created this many stories to get to that point. But how does this happen? How does someone take that first step towards becoming a successful manga author? And it only took me reading over 1,000 different stories to realize that answer might be contained in something as short as a couple of pages. Now, how does it all start? To answer that, let's look at one specific creator. This is Takeru Hokazono, someone who's new to the manga game but is becoming an emerging presence with their first series, Kagurabachi. Yet, what were they doing prior to the first chapter to be put in a position with the opportunity to excel in the largest manga magazine in the world? Well, before ever gaining any recognition ever, authors must submit short stories called one-shots to editors in hopes of getting noticed. Hokazono did so by entering into one of the largest manga competitions, which resulted in them getting 2 of their short stories published. So okay, perfect. Hokazono has won a manga competition, they even got 2 of their short stories published, so obviously this means they're about to create their first masterpiece, right? Not quite. See, even after becoming a winner among thousands of different entrants, there's still more work that needs to be done, meaning more one-shots, more rough drafts, more learning and improving, until finally, opportunity meets preparation. In looking at this timeline of Takeru Hokazono's early career, there's one specific thing that has piqued my interest: one-shots. And if every author has them, if every author needs to write them for success, what are the best ones? And I'll make sure that by the end of this, you have the greatest curated list of must-read one-shots. Alright, what is this, or this, or even this? And you might be confused because these are clearly some of the most prominent and popular stories available in manga. But they're not. At least not yet. See, the thing is, these one-shots that authors create can come in 2 varieties. The first is what Hokazono created, standard one-shots that are all uniquely independent from one another, where you get amazingly peak stories like this, all wrapped up into a clean 50 pages. Yet on the other hand, there are prototypes, very similar to the traditional one-shot, but maybe even a little bit better. See, they all start out the exact same, as completely new stories. However, this time an editor liked enough aspects of the original one-shot, and they want to work towards fleshing it out to turn it into a long-running series. Now, you might think that these prototypes are nearly one-to-one copies of the series, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Now, before we eventually get into diving into the best one-shots and why everyone should read them, let's dissect 3 different prototypes to grasp what is needed for success, where we will look at one that I thought was amazing, a promising one, and one that I'm kinda stunned made the transition that it did, from a bad one-shot into one of the greatest stories of all time. And to do this, I'll score them out of 100. Based on the plots, characters, art quality, setting, but most importantly is the uniqueness of the story and my perceived future potential if I didn't know anything else about it. And to start off, let's take a look at a little manga called
Death Note.
To begin, the story has a very similar setup to the series. Ryuk drops his Death Note in the human realm for a little bit of entertainment, but the person that picks it up, it's not light. We have a totally different protagonist who is only 13 years old, and upon stumbling across the notebook on the ground, this child assumes it's a regular old diary. So when they get to class the next day, they get notified that the dudes that bullied him the day before all perished. So he figures out about the powers of the Death Note, creating a frightening police investigation. So what does this boy do? Will he take on a similar philosophy to Light, or do something entirely different? See, this version of Death Note has tons of differences, the only commonality really being the Death Note itself. But that is what makes Death Note such a perfect story. Because if you throw the Death Note in hundreds of different people's hands, you'll have entirely new outcomes. And because of the future potential and uniqueness, it easily gets max points. As for the plot though, they introduced a new power I wasn't really a fan of, so I bumped down the score just a notch. Similarly, the art is pretty superb. Like, this panel exists in a one-shot? Gotta give it near max points. But I do think that this guy is not as compelling as this guy, so I give the characters a 16 out of 20. And the setting is nothing special, so I'll just give it a 7 out of 10, which means that Death Note got a score of 91. And I think that makes perfect sense. The concept alone is so compelling that no matter the scenario, it would probably be a good read. Now the next prototype is very interesting, because it's honestly unlike any of the other one-shots I read for this video, and that's because of 2 things. First, the lackluster art quality since the author was still just learning how to draw essentially, combined with the unrivaled future potential created from the uniqueness in the setting. And the story I'm talking about is Attack on Titan. At this point in Hajime Isayama's career, he said that he didn't even know how to hold a pen properly, and it kinda shows. But that doesn't stop this one-shot from exploding with endless potential. It has a compelling world, character, plot, and is brimming with originality. From the Titans to the ODM gear, there's just no wonder that the art quality doesn't really matter. Even with there being differences in the characters, how the world is set up, and the plot just being about a simple Titan invasion, it still feels novel in a homogenous industry. Overall, I would give it a score totaling 81 points, which is heavily carried by the unique ideas and probably my bias for what the story actually becomes. This next prototype is bad. And I'm not trying to dog the series because I really like the long-running version. That said, the prototype chapter is so extremely different, and I'm honestly perplexed how they pulled off the changes it did. And I need to preface this because I'm talking about Naruto, a fucking beloved story. Now, the Naruto character in the one-shot is pretty similar. He's whimsical, childish, and goofy. But the world, story, power system, and literally everything else around him is drastically different. It starts off with Hiruzen lecturing Naruto, giving him a goal to make a single friend, and that's what the entire pilot chapter is based off of. But when he gets there, he encounters a jaded drunkard, and needing to take him back to his place, he meets his artist roommate, where there is this heist and then everything is blamed on Naruto, and then the rest of the story is just him running around trying to prove his innocence. Like, it doesn't make any sense how this is Naruto, and how this became Naruto. Where this falls out of line for me is that there is no emphasis on the unique elements that make Naruto what it is. No interesting use of jutsu, no understanding that there's a complex broader world out there that feels alive, no compelling deep set of characters that make you feel the depth of the story, and the relationship that is created from the drunkard and Naruto feels more forced and unnatural than trying to make a move on your first girlfriend. Ultimately, the score of this one shot alone is a 67, with the only meaningful character being Naruto himself, and everything else just not really clicking with me. Besides the art, of course. But what I think is interesting is that the aspect that prevails above all else in these prototypes is the uniqueness of the concepts, where everything else seems to be supporting that, as these characteristics are less meaningful for editors looking for a long-running series, because someone can always change the characters or improve their artwork, but the originality from the initial idea is harder to come by. But this ideology only really applies to prototypes, which account for a fractional percent of all of the one-shots that exist. With the new harbinger of success is whether these 50 pages provide enough value to compare to long-running series. So let me highlight one-shots I think easily provide enough value, if not more than a large sector of long-running manga. And later I'll give you a list of my top 30 one-shots. And to start it off, let me show you my favorite one-shot from Takeru Kozono, since I've mentioned them so much. And it's a 15-page story called Knitting by the Window, with a plot twist that would make you think that this manga is set in Florida. Uta is a punching bag, totally isolated from everyone around him, until one day, an act of kindness shines a slim glimmer of hope. And these awkward interactions provided Uta with all the courage he needed, where he goes on to give a gift to the one that's helped him through so much. A special gift that, if enough wishes are channeled into it, will grant the wish when the time is right and it snaps.
Oh my, oh my, oh my. Is it like that? And Oda, really, what's up with you? You fucking trash!
Now, if you've ever wondered how I've created some of these animations such as this, there's a very useful website called Tuna that you should check out. It's actually made by someone I know, and I really respect what they're doing, as this upscale tool is something I frequently use. And there's also this cut and fill tool that makes it really easy to grab characters for part of my videos. But honestly, Tuna is just a cool hub for everything manga animation. You can see so many other people's amazing work that is honestly way better than anything I've ever made. You can try using the features right now at Tuna, and if you want some more access, you can use my link in the description. I'd appreciate it a lot. Now, to give you something on the completely opposite side of the spectrum, let me talk about Inio Asano, as I've always wanted to read Goodnight Pun Pun, but I'm scared to. Because if you don't know, it's apparently the most fucked up story that makes everyone bawl their eyes until they feel hollow inside, and I'm just not ready to be shattered mentally. However, by binging Inio Asano's one-shots, I can still understand him. I can still read his raw, uncomfortable portrayals of youth that make him the legend he is, and even find a 10 out of 10 emotional story that kinda broke me. Service Area is a simple story about a man who lives in Tokyo, and he finally decides to take his girlfriend to visit his parents that he hasn't seen in a very long time. When they arrive at his parents' house, he and his father silently sit down to watch a New Year's TV show and begin to talk. That's it. But the realness really hit home for me. Likewise, you can always find one-shots from authors you adore to fill that yearning you have for their work. For example, if you love Kentaro Miura's Berserk and just want a tiny bit more, the original prototype can give you all that you love and show you where it originally started. Personally, I think Tsubasa Yamaguchi, the author of Blue Period, writes some of the greatest character dramas in manga, and this collection of one-shots is utterly enthralling. From Tatsuki Fujimoto to Naoki Urasawa, you'll be eating good reading one-shots from all-star level talents in the field. But well-known individuals aren't the only ones creating must-read short stories. You can find the sneakiest hidden gems that later become long-running serialized work, such as this. The original one-shot for it came out in 2020, with it getting a series adaptation in 2022. And I remember reading it when it came out and thinking, holy shit, these guys look cool. And what they do is whatever you want them to do. They're a jack-of-all-trades duo that'll do whatever job you pay them for, which gives it the ultimate freedom to tell whatever stories it wants. And from the character designs, background art, and action sequences, this is top-tier stuff. And it's the type of story that is very character-driven. Since it's so free, it heavily relies on the attachment it's able to create from the characters, and typically I love that, especially when they have unique designs and personalities like these. Currently, the series version has about 20 chapters, and I'm excited to see where it goes next. But what makes one-shots so unique is the exploration of novel ideas, such as in this. What if you could wish for anything and have it magically appear before you? What would you want? Wealth, fame, power? How about new sneakers after noticing a hole in your current ones? Pretty awesome, right? But there's a condition. You can wish for anything, however it will disappear after a single day. Now, how does this change things? You still want that pair of realistic model feet? Maybe not. So what do you wish for, if anything at all? This is what Locker Room is all about. Altering this guy's life, but is it for the better or worse? An idea like this would never work in a long-running manga, but in a short story makes it beyond intriguing, and it's only done in 32 pages. Now let me tell you about Tokidoki, a story I'm surprised was so enjoyable. This girl suffers from a disease that shortens her lifespan, where she knows the exact amount of heartbeats she has left to live. And if you were in this scenario, what would your course of action be? Try to minimize your heart rate to extend your life as long as possible? Or try to experience everything you can while you still have a chance? For Hatsu, she was totally set on just trying to live, making her life stretch out just an inch more, until a fateful encounter with this guy, transforming her life around to acquire all of the life experiences she missed out on. And in this one shot, you experience some nice heart-beating moments, but of course it's never that simple. But there are more one-shots than I could ever cover in such a short video, so I've created different categories of great one-shots that you should read. To start, here are my 10 greatest one-shots that everyone watching must read. And at the top are 2 one-shots I haven't even mentioned in this video, Goodbye Eri and Look Back. These are probably the most well-known one-shots, which is why I've refrained from discussing them. I think they're better than waking up from one of those naps where you don't even remember what day it is, so clearly you gotta read them if you haven't already. The rest of this list is ordered sequentially based on my enjoyment. I want to give special attention to Tempest by Inio Asano, this one, and another one that's a little bit odd and might be harder for some to read. Now for the other categories. The heavily dramatized ones are led by literally any Inio Asano one-shot, since they're all at least a 7 out of 10 and can be perfection if they click with you. Here are some of the better prototype chapters I haven't mentioned yet so far. Finally, here are another 5 one-shots that I really liked, but couldn't fit into any of the other lists. Learning about all of these one-shots in general has been eye-opening. Who knew that there could be this many stories worth reading that not a soul is mentioning? Authors write one-shots non-stop, honing their craft until they're able to get the breakthrough that they're looking for. See, after analyzing 40 different authors, I found that they published on average just over 4 one-shots before getting their first major series. And this isn't even considering one-shots that never see anyone else's eye. But not only are they the foundation of authors' career, but they're a milestone. They're used as a marker to see how far authors have come. Time and time again, authors will create more one-shots after achieving success with their first series. And this is where the best of the best stories come from, when authors have complete liberty to create whatever their heart desires without being constricted by editors, series, or fans. And sure, these stories may only take up 20, 50, or 100 pages, but every line, panel, and speech bubble is worth 100 times the weight, possibly leaving a lasting impact, resonating with you long after it's been over. Thanks for watching. If you liked, why not subscribe or check out my other videos?